Welcome everybody to our weekly interfaith meeting by Zoom, number 261. And good to see familiar faces and new faces. And a little later, I'll properly introduce our speaker, Mr. Tom Halbert, who will be speaking on spiritual and environmental preservation from a Buddhist perspective. But just a little bit of housekeeping first. If you just make sure your name matches on the screen, matches your real name, that would be great. Use the reaction button to raise your hand if you can find the reaction button. Otherwise, just raise your hand. Hopefully, I'll notice you. That's later when we have the discussion. And when you're not speaking, just it's best to stay muted. And we looked for some principles to follow for these meetings, and we found Dr. Leonard Swidler, a Catholic professor of interreligious dialogue. Let a couple of people in. And the primary purpose is to learn. So even though we all naturally got a lot to teach and to share, and we probably want to, but it's much better if we come here to learn, and to learn from the presenter in particular. And this particular passage was a favourite of Siva Perry, who helped to found this group about 5 years ago. And this is from the Universal House of Justice of the Baha'i Faith. Whether through deeds or words, the merit of your every contribution to social well-being lies first in your resolute commitment to discover that precious point of unity where contrasting perspectives overlap and around which contending peoples can coalesce. In other words, we're looking for points of unity and building on those, contrary to what often happens in interfaith dialogue, where you focus on points of difference and probably don't get very far. Just a special occasion tonight because Siva passed away just over a year ago, and our first piece of music tonight will be a prayer for the departed, to help Siva's soul on its journey. So I'd just like to ask Ling if you could honour the Indigenous people in the land, and then we'll begin the program.
Tom, can you actually put that up for me, please, if you do?
There you go. It's right on the screen.
Thank you so much. Okay, just give me a minute. I can make it bigger. Acknowledging and honoring Indigenous land and people. There is widespread acknowledgement that the present day structures of society are just give me a minute. I need to make it bigger. Yeah, that is much better. Thank you. There is widespread acknowledgement that the present day structures of society are prepared to address the needs of humanity in its current travels. Much that was widely assumed to be certain and unshakable is being questioned, and the resulting ferment is producing a longing for a unifying vision. The chorus of voices rise in support of oneness, equality, and justice shows how many share these inspirations for their society. From Readman Message 2023, Universal House of Justice. We acknowledge and pay respect to the past, present, and future traditional custodian and elders of these nations called Australia, and the continuations of cultural, spiritual, and educational practices of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people. We acknowledge Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders tribes were the first sovereign nations of the Australian continents. The Gadigal of the Eora nations are the traditional custodians of this place we now call Sydney. And Wangal people are traditional owners of Burwood. Amen.
Thank you, Lee.
Oh my God, oh thou forgiver of sins, bestower of gifts, dispeller of affliction. Oh my God, oh thou forgiver of sins, bestower of gifts, dispeller of affliction. Verily I beseech thee to forgive the sins of such as have abandoned the physical garment and have ascended to the spiritual world, and have ascended to the spiritual world. Oh my Lord, purify them from trespasses, dispel their sorrows, and change their darkness into light. Oh my Lord, purify them from trespasses, dispel their sorrows, and change their darkness into light. Cause them to enter the garden of happiness, cleanse them with the most pure water, and grant to behold thy splendors on the loftiest mount. Cause them to enter the garden of happiness, cleanse them with the most pure water, and grant them to behold thy splendors on the loftiest mount.
I, Brahma, am the one eternal God, and at the hour of death, he that had meditated me alone in putting off his flesh comes forth to me, enters into my being. Dost thou not, because the soul is fashioned to its like. Have me then in thy heart always. Thou too, when heart and mind are fixed on me, shalt surely come to me. Hindu scripture, Bhagavad Gita.
And we worship the glorious works of righteousness in which the souls of the dead find satisfaction and delight. And we worship heaven, the best world of the saints, shining all glorious. Such are these Gathas to us, guardians and defenders and spiritual food. Even such they are, both food and clothing to the soul. Zoroastrian writings.
Those whose mind is well trained, the path of enlightenment, who cling not to anything and find joy in this freedom from attachment, whose passions have been overcome and who shine with the pure, these shall attain nirvana even in this mortal life. What a scripture.
Ye prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Ye anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I'll dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Jewish scripture.
Therefore, we do not lose heart, though outwardly we are wasting away, that inwardly we are being renewed day by day. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen, since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. Christian scriptures.
O souls that are at rest, return to your Lord, well pleased with him, well pleasing him. So enter among my servants and enter into my garden. Islamic scripture.
Our body is like the cage, and the spirit is like the bird. If the cage becomes broken, the bird will continue and exist. Its feeling will be even more powerful, its perceptions greater, and its happiness increased. Baha'i scriptures.
Buddha and I took a walk in the park. He held my hand and showed me around. We saw butterflies, flowers, and squirrels, and birds singing on trees. Buddha and I took a walk in the park. He held my hand and showed me around. We saw butterflies, flowers, and squirrels, and birds singing on trees. Buddha told me with love I can be kind to my dear, and squirrels and birds singing on trees. Buddha taught me with love I can be kind to my dear animal friends. Buddha taught me with care I can be kind to my dear animal friends. Buddha taught me with love I can be kind to my dear animal friends. Buddha taught me with care I can be kind to my dear animal friends. Buddha taught me with love I can be kind to my dear animal friends.
Thank you very much to the readers. And now my great pleasure to introduce our presenter for tonight, Mr. Tom Halbert. Tom was born in Perth, Western Australia, and one of the motivations for moving east 50 years ago was to go spend a month in a Tibetan Buddhist monastery in Queensland. His career in IT was for about 45 years. The environmental challenges inspired Tom to get a degree in sustainable development in 2014. His particular calling is around infusing environmental practice with the spiritual. Tom and Ling are married with 2 wonderful grown-up sons and daughters-in-law and 4 grandchildren. And the topic tonight, spiritual and environmental preservation. Over to you, Tom.
Thank you, Colin, and greetings, everybody. Very happy to be here and to see folks from far and wide. So welcome to Germany and Ethiopia, I believe, if I can say that right. How wonderful. Yes, so just a little bit more about the talk tonight and a bit of an overview, and then we'll get into things. And one of the things is that I'm not a Dharma teacher. What I'm talking about is what I've learned and been inspired from Buddhism and the Buddha's teachings and our teachings over the centuries and in the present day as well. And certainly on the environmental side as well, seeing what's happening with the environmental damage and all the effect of our human activity on that. And of course, environment includes people and their suffering, the animals, the nature spirits, the ecosystems, the oceans, the mountains, the forests. So all of these parts of our world are going through a very challenging time. And so this is part of the reason that I did the degree in sustainable development, is to get to understand that a bit more. And one of the things I came to me as I was doing the degree was I would go through this roller coaster because we're studying the situation and there'd be bad news. So I'd be down in the depths of a bit of despair, a bit of hopelessness, feeling a bit depressed. But then we'd be talking about solutions or good things that are happening, and so then the feeling would lift up. And so there's like this whole thing about going through the course was a bit like that. So just think about what we're talking about tonight. So set the context on the spiritual, what that can mean for us all, and to think about how we feel about this situation, what we can do about those feelings, and to see what Buddhist teachings have that can give us a reliable way forward that we can have confidence in, that I can have confidence in. And I think just to widen that context a bit more, as you well know, you could probably say that humanity is facing the modern crises at the moment, because it's not just the environmental issues that are looming large. It's all sorts of things, political turmoil, economic challenges, misinformation, social media things. Oh, and then, of course, our new friend on the block, artificial intelligence. So in a way, what I'm talking about tonight, I believe, can be applied to how we navigate through these modern crises, and what we can, how we can have a heartful journey in our lives as we deal with these situations. Spiritual and environmental. For some time, when I came up with this kind of concept, I was thinking I had to define the spiritual. Well, would anybody like to take up that challenge? No, because there's such diversity in humanity's spiritual. So I believe the best thing to say is the spiritual that each of us bring with us. This gives us plenty of latitude and good topics for conversations to explore what the spiritual means for each of us with our own faiths, or what we think about the world and our place in it. One of the things I think about our spiritual teachers broadly is one part of their message. It actually, this came home to me the other day when we were at the Baha'i temple for the memorial service, is that our spiritual teachers urge us to bring forth our better natures, and help us to understand the challenges, the challenging part of our human being, and give us guidance on how to deal with that. And so there's many common themes throughout humanity and throughout our spiritual practices that are about that. Of course, a good one, the Golden Rule, is a good example of that. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, which is, I believe, fairly universal. The title was inspired by Venerable Master Xing Yun's 2000 talk of the same name, Spiritual and Environmental Preservation. Venerable Master Xing Yun founded the Fo Guang Shan Buddhist Order, and Nantian Temple and Wollongong and its branches in Sydney are a part of that Buddhist order. Ling and I just recently visited Taiwan, where the headquarters are for Fo Guang Shan. In reading his talk, I was realized, in conjunction with my studies and things, is that the discourse on the environment is largely technical and political. So there's all the science, and then there's all the toing and froing in the political scene about trying to deal with it, and of course there is many people, and we would, acknowledge particularly Indigenous people who have been looking after their country all around the world for millennia, have certainly a spiritual aspect to the way that they have meaning in nature and meaning for country, and have a more direct relationship with nature. And as a modern kind of person, I would like to say that, being inspired by Buddhism and the spiritual is that it would be to unashamedly bring the spiritual into the conversation to help us provide a grounding for why we care about the environmental situation and the impact it has on the beings of planet Earth. And also, I think it gives us a basis for a clear path for governance that we can take up. It's very easy to see without too much research that traditional communities across the planet have had governance systems in place. And once again, they're recognizing that those governance structures are ways of ensuring that the way we behave towards the environment, towards nature, means that we care for it, look after it, and love it. So how do we feel about what's happening in the environment? There's a big list of things. We have a stall, a spiritual environmental preservation stall at Nan Tien markets once a month down at Wollongong. And we get to talk to people about environmental things. And they would report a rather large spectrum of feelings when they think about the environmental issues and destruction. So there can be shock, despair, anger, feeling depressed about it, feeling hopeless, feeling alone, unable to do things. And I'm sure you could name a few other kind of feelings that will come up for yourself around when you look closely at this situation around the world. And so how is it that I can live with these feelings as a Buddhist? So the painfulness of those emotions, one of the things that I look to do is to see the meaning of those emotions is telling me that I'm a caring human being. I do care about all those things and what's happening with people and the animals and the nature spirits and the land. And so those feelings are like messengers to me, and they're not something to be ashamed of or to be pushed away. And that's part of our Buddhist practice. Is, we would say that, well, acknowledge those feelings, accept them, so rather than push them away, or rather than even hold them tightly, because sometimes we do hold tightly to things that are painful, but rather to see them clearly and to acknowledge and accept them and receive their message and interpret it in a way that suits how you want to deal with the situation. So it could be as a call to action, could be many things. So those feelings can be bringing on compassion, caring, kindness as a response to seeing all of those things in play. And so then I'd like to think about one thing that's which is part of the Buddha's life story. You may recall Prince Siddhartha, before he was Buddha, was sequestered in the palace and kept from all the worldly troubles. And eventually he went out and he saw the three sides: a sick person he'd never seen before, a really, really old person, with a stick and bent over, and a dead body. And he'd never seen that before. So that was a shock. And also he saw a monastic doing some meditation, and he came to understand that in amongst all this suffering, there was a way forward that could be reliable and you could have confidence in. And his journey to enlightenment was to explore that and find that path, that reliable way forward that we can have confidence in. And so what parts of that structure? There's many. Let's just mention a couple tonight. So one thing we talk about quite a bit in Buddhism is having compassion, to see the suffering and to be with it, with people who are suffering or the suffering with other beings, and to have the heartfulness to think about and feel how is it that we can help people and other beings. But the other part of compassion, and compassion is like having one wing. If you're a bird and you only have one wing, you're going to fly around in circles, so we need two wings. The other wing is going to be wisdom. And so this is, so you could think about the feelings that we have as painful reactions which arise when we see painful sights. And we allow wisdom to arise, so that is then to pause, to be present and to sense and listen for what the heart may tell. And the heart tells us a lot of things. And that can let us approach the situations with some wisdom. Another thing that's stand out for me is in one of the suttas of what the Buddha spoke, he talked about the 4 right efforts. And this really jumped out for me when I kind of read this and had a strong meaning for me. So before, in that sutta, before he listed the 4 right efforts, he talked about a bit of a framework in the sense that he said, generate enthusiasm, try, strive, exert the mind, and make an effort. And so that little prelude to talking about the 4 right efforts has got a bright spark in it, which is generate enthusiasm. And so here the Buddha is telling us something, from my point of view, about our human nature, which is that we can generate parts of our persona as needs be. Easy to say, but that's what practice is about. And so that's a really strong acknowledgement for about what it is part of our structure of being a human, is that we actually can generate and turn our direction and our hearts and minds in different ways by generating enthusiasm. That's a good start. And so the 4-8 efforts revolve around, so when difficult states arise, then generate enthusiasm, try, strive, exert the mind, so that those difficult states are given up. And the difficult states that have not arisen, generate enthusiasm, try, strive, exert the mind, so that those states do not arise. And then on the other hand, wholesome, helpful states that have not arisen, give rise to them, and wholesome states that have arisen, then develop them, look after them, nurture them. And so going back to, how I'm feeling like depressed or despairing about the environmental situation is having acknowledged those feelings and respected them, is that I would say if I stay in that state, that's a difficult state and not very helpful. And then I can work and practice to bring forward some other kind of wholesome state. Another way of thinking about applying this is to recognize that our brains seem to have some kind of cognitive structure that looks for bad news. Isn't that fun? And of course, the media, in its looking after its customers, who are the advertisers, use that quite effectively in presenting news to us that our brain is attracted to. And so it's not so much news, really, as far as I can see. It's more about getting our attention. No doubt you've heard the term attention economy these days has become an economic aspect of human beings that social media and the media look to capture. And so, it's possible to be swamped by this bad news. It's like all that news is from everywhere, 24 hours a day, and it doesn't matter where you look, you're going to be presented with that. And so if we saw that as being a difficult state that we might get into by being stuck in, like recognizing that our brains are like, well, I like that, then is that we can work to give that up. And alternatively, for me, what I would like to say is that I can make an effort to look for the good news, to balance this out. I mean, it's, one of the things Master Xing Yun talked about is like, well, life is half and half. There's half good and half bad. And so, but if we're just focusing on the bad all the time, then that's not the full view of what life is about. And so if we make an effort to look for the good news about environmental things, all you have to do is sit down at the Ecosia search engine, ecosia.org, write that down, because if you use the ecosia.org as a search engine, they have an arrangement whereby the money from the ads goes towards planting trees. And they've been doing that since 2014, and they've planted about 250 million trees so far. But if you sit down at a search engine and look for good news about what's happening on the environment, then you'll find you'll never get to the end of it, because there's millions of people and organizations, government, business, social enterprises all around the world putting tremendous effort into restoring environment, looking after the environment, taking political action. And so this is a very heartening thing and encouraging for me and hopefully for us to participate in and recognize that we're not alone. We are in the company of a host of humans who are getting on with the job of taking care of people, planet, animals, nature spirits, forests, oceans. And of course, no doubt the situation is still challenging. And I don't know how it's going to turn out, but I know how I want to set my course in amongst all this. And I don't expect to like have some magic wand, of course, to wave and make all this get sorted out. No, I can do what's in my circle of influence, and I can get on with things there. And so one part of good news that I'd like to relate to you is that my professor, Glenn Albrecht, when I was doing my sustainability studies, he was a professor of sustainability, but his career is a philosopher. You may have heard of the term solastalgia, a term which he coined, which is the lack of solace that you receive from the environment when your environment changes. He developed this term from his research studies of coal mines and the impact on farming people in the Hunter Valley in New South Wales. And so it's like a recognizable emotion. You can sometimes see videos of farmers crying because of what the coal mines have done to their land up there. But he wrote a book recently called Earth Emotions, New Language, New Words for a New World. And so he's introduced this concept of the Symbiocene, which is the era of mutual benefit living for humans. And this is where, as we live our lives individually, we can be a little oasis of viable human living. And just think about all those little oases coalescing to allow humans to have a symbiotic relationship, a mutually beneficial relationship with nature. One of the lovely words he introduced is euteria, which is the love that we feel for nature. And so one other thing that I learned from Buddhism is not just to have energy for doing things, but also to take it to heart and make a vow, which energizes your intent to another level, I suppose you could say. And so it took me quite some time to come up with the vow that I wanted to make, which kind of encompassed the whole thing for me. Because one of my dilemmas in doing the sustainability degree was like, there's a lot of leaks in the dike and I can't put my finger in every one of those leaks. So how is it that I can accept the fact that I can do what I can do and all the other things, well, they're going to get looked after by other people, because it's like, what's my calling in this situation? What am I called to do? And that's from the heart. So what I came up with was to say that I, Tom, vow to keep the planet livable for all. And so that really helps me to have that larger purpose. And then within that, I can apply myself to the practice of whatever that might be. And as you may know as well, in Buddhism, we talk about the Eightfold Path that the Buddha outlined for the path to ending suffering and experiencing enlightenment. And so there's right thought, right speech, and right action. And so all of this kind of structure about like the talk and the concept of things comes down to what is the action that I can do. So there's small things, larger things. Well, just look at Australia. How many solar panels there are on how many roofs? It's just incredible. And now we've got a battery program as well, which is another big deal. So those are big things. Or another big thing is electric car, or getting a sustainability assessment for your house and fixing up the leaks and the windows and things like this. But it might be something, just simple things as well. I go and pick up plastic in my street and sequester it by putting it in the garbage so it goes and gets buried. And once again, there's like I have a little mantra, this bit of plastic is not going to end up inside a fish. Well, this bit of plastic's not going to get eaten by a bird. And so this little mantra is a way of, keeping my enthusiasm up and helping me to stay away from, oh, who's the naughty person who dropped this bit of plastic? Why do they keep doing that? And getting angry with them instead of just do it. And so I would say, how can we think about maybe once a month, what would be my next environmental practice that I can pick up and run with? Over to you, Colin.
Gosh, Tom, there's a lot to think about in that, and definitely connections between the spirit and religion and the problems in the world and what we can do about it. So this is the time when we invite anyone who has a comment or a question to raise their hand electronically. So Yung is first, and Yung, we only have half an hour. If you could just keep your question to the point.
Thank you. If you work for a company like 8,000 people, like 8,000 staff, and there are many divisions and departments and everything, so the department or the office that look after environmental regulations, you probably only found very few staff. I mean, there's experience that we know. They will not have so many staff just like in IT, right? That experience that we know, because the subject is quite difficult to tackle on. Just like in the last few years, we experienced a lot of fire and flood in the countryside when we call it nature. And then after that, people struggle with fire and flood, and the animals get killed. and a lot of suffering there. So if we say, and then after that we had COVID. So what I'm saying is, and they said COVID comes from the water. In American research, they said they found a virus in the water that create COVID. So if we look into it, and you talk about spiritual, well-being and compassion from Buddha or from God, God can eliminate all these problems. We didn't have to encounter problem, right? Just like nowadays, if you want organic food, organic means nature, no chemical. But then organic food are very expensive. So only the rich can eat organic food. And is that compassion? The second one is, when we want to make the grass greener, we use chemical called Roundup. And a lot of people get cancer from the Roundup spray to the grass. So therefore, a lot of action group have been go to the court in America, thousands and thousands of them, ask for compensation. So this is, like you said, there's too much trouble on this sort of topic. And if Buddha love people and has spiritual enlightenment and try to provide salvation, he could stop all these things. Talk about real life here. He could stop everything.
Okay, Young, that was a good, you've reached a good point in the observation you've made there, some of the challenges in the world.
And some of the things that spirituality, as I heard that some people say this, something to do with diversity. Each individual have different sort of ideas about spiritual world, and the other people, the other group, think about is oneness and unity. So all these one contradiction to each other. They call, like different diversion of opinions. So therefore, we have to bring philosophy in for the subject matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Young. Tom, did you want to comment on anything there?
Yeah, thank you, Jung. I certainly recognize your seeing what's happening, and obviously with great concern that you see that. So there's a compassionate thing. I mean, how is it that we deal with that? So I think it's, for me, you talk about large companies. What is it that you can do? So these, what is it that's in your circle of influence to put into action? There's half and a half world. That's like, and companies with their profit motives are part of the issue. But there are alternatives. There are for-benefit corporations which allocate are not so focused on profit that they also allocate profit money to social good. So there's half and half things happening all the time, and for me, I would like to do what I can. In amongst all of that, like confusion and contradiction and dilemma, is to be with that, see it. It is a dilemma. It is a contradiction. But what can I put forward in this situation?
Thank you, Tom and Young. Ahmed.
Thanks, Tom, for that talk, and it's nice to see you here presenting that talk. When I go to work daily in the morning, or walk to the train station, and I pass a car park there in order to get to that train station, and I see a lot of littering, despite the council cleaning it regularly. Well, I assume that is regular, but you see a lot of litter there. I'm just wondering whether us as people that really care are outnumbered, and how whether those people that do these sort of things, the littering, they're doing it out of non-conscious type of thing, out of not knowing that they're doing. I'm wondering whether you have an idea of whether we just go as we are and we do as we are or do, and how can we, as outnumbered people, to bring this to attention of the society that littering is wrong.
Not easy task.
Yeah.
It's like, I've bent my head around my mind around this for quite some time, and it's not straightforward. So, I mean, generally speaking, the solution or a solution or a way of approaching this is to develop a social enterprise, which is finding a way, an attractive way for people to participate. And so this is worthy of a lot of study. It's not a straightforward issue. You remember we used to have Clean Up Australia? No, not Clean Up Australia. It was like when I was many years ago. Keep Australia Beautiful. Yeah. And so that was, like government-sponsored initiative, and it did have an impact. And of course, we have Clean Up Australia Day as well. So, but how we, all of those folks who are just dropping rubbish everywhere, because we see that all over the place. How is it that we can encourage them?
Because we don't see them.
You don't see them. Well, no, that's right. Not so easy to answer.
Yeah. Well, another thing, actually, the car park is very close to a McDonald's, and every day I see pieces of material from leftover of the food, cups and bags and things like that from McDonald's. So I'm wondering whether the companies have to become responsible for these sort of things.
Well, there's a good point. So there's a system issue here as well, which is that plastic doesn't degrade. Whereas Ling would tell you, maybe not tonight, but when she's grown up in Laos, takeaway food was wrapped in a palm leaf or wrapped in a lotus leaf. No problem. Because, you could throw it away and it would decompose, become compost and help the soil. And so there's a big system issue that we're stuck with petrochemicals, and the amount of research in order to produce biodegradable plastic is missing. If we had biodegradable plastic, it wouldn't be such a problem.
But we are going towards paper use, for these sort of things, more and more. But yeah, is there.
Donna, you did your hand up. Did you raise your hand, Donna?
Yes, I did. Well, there are two things that came to my mind. And one is when you go by train, out of the city, out of Sydney, maybe Southern Highlands and there, Wollongong, you notice all these new developments, house after house, sort of looking grey, very few trees. And so with the increasing population, how can you possibly, protect environment? It's the main, apart from global warming, the main reason for species going extinct or is loss of habitat. And another thing is distress. I think many people just rushing here, rushing there, young people, competing, and so they sort of in a hurry, they're too lazy, then just put the rubbish in the bin, that I think the two things that very competitive society, grew up in Czechoslovakia, well, I guess probably everywhere, the pace of life wasn't as high. And I notice it now more because, I'm retired and pensioner. Just people rushing and I find it a bit stressful, be exposed to it. And so I try to, even just getting into the light rail or bus, and so I try to go my own pace. And anyway, that's what I notice. These two things. It's the population pressure and the pace of life.
Thank you, Dana. I just wanted to make an observation. I think government can be very helpful because we had plastic bags. Now we have slightly more reusable type things from shopping centres. But anyway, I thought it was going to be a disaster when they stopped giving us as many plastic bags as we wanted, and because I found them very useful. But because the government made the decision, so instead of me having to make the right decision every day, all my life, no plastic bag, no plastic bag, do something else. The government just made the one decision for all of us. We got used to it quickly. It's so much easier so I'm just wondering, do you think there's a role for working through government and going that way?
Definitely. There's many instances of the government taking the lead. New South Wales government gave us a 60-cent feed-in tariff for solar panels at some point, right? And so these kind of things boosted the growth of solar, and just like the example that you mentioned, of course, government is half and half too. So there's good things that they do, but there's other things that they seem to ignore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess when things get bad enough, and there's enough, the community wants it. That's where our individual desires and values can make a difference when we're influencing the government.
Yeah. And one of the things I came across in my sustainability degree was this concept of wicked problems, which are problems that are like so complex that they're just not easy. There's no single magic bullet solution. And sometimes, magic bullet solution is very attractive, but it doesn't work because you're trying to work with a system that's got so many things happening in it. You have to work with things in a different way.
Thank you. Tesfaye.
Yes, thank you for this very, very important subject, environment. And if the environment and humanity finally will see important as for me. But when we see the problem of our world today, it lacks focus. For example, some they have environment problem, some nations have the peace problem, some nations have a hunger problem. So when I look at these things, there's much focus has to be needed for this environmental things to be settled. As you say, it is a very, very complex problems because the government interfere, the individuals, the coal miners, the capitalists. It's very complex problem. But it has to be addressed in order life on earth to push forward, in order the all created things to live as you said, as you quote from Matthias Buddha. But for example, in our country, the problem is famine. In another country, the problem is other. So unless the world focus to one thing or get together somehow and deal to address all the problems together in unilaterally, I think this could be very possible. Then after the world become give some kind of a little peace, a little of unity, then the people will focus on issues like this, very pressing issues like the environment. But here in our world, in our area, if you plant a tree, they laugh at you sometimes. They laugh at it. If you go to the mountain and to plant a tree, they will laugh because there are other pressing issues that couldn't make them do the right thing. So unless the world come together, unless all the intellectuals, all the scientists focus to one thing, I don't. It will be very, very problematic to address these very compelling issues. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Tesfaye. I really appreciate what you're saying there. And I guess one of the thoughts that come up for me in amongst everything you're saying there is to be an oasis ourselves in whatever way we can. So be that nature oasis and that, human oasis of human kindness, and generosity, and compassion.
Thank you for the comment and question, Tesfaye. And yeah, thank you, Tom. That does sound like what we see when people think of Buddhists. We think of little oases of peace and helpfulness. Tracy.
I thank you, Tom, for. I'm sorry, my internet is really terrible tonight, so I haven't got the video on.
You're loud and clear at the moment.
We're in a transition, aren't we? We've had the sort of the dominant view of that we don't need to take care of the environment. We can dominate, and it will just adjust, and life will go on, and that is proved to be false. But it's been dominating since the start of the Industrial Revolution around the world. And we're in a transition of coming to terms with the consequences of that idea dominating, and the sort of the raising of consciousness that as you have very thoughtfully been putting attention to, we can only do so much. There's so many holes. We can see so many things, so many needs, that we can just sort of spend our life crying about it, which will not accomplish the resolution that we want, and we won't even be a good oasis. So
a crying oasis.
So I appreciate that you have given a lot of, and Ling also, by her comments in the chat, have given thought and spiritual energy and heart to help us in this important transition that humanity is going through. That as we learn the consequences and we individually and collectively bring about change, it's not a straight line. And dealing with the non-straight line is part of our challenge.
Yeah,
And no magic wands. What a pity.
I reckon, yeah.
Anyway, thank you for your considered effort.
Thank you,
Thank
Tracy.
you for the talk tonight.
Basantha, your hand is up.
Thank you, Lynn and Tom, for your presentation. As Lynn suggested, we have to start with in whatever small way we are able to. I think that is the best thing to do. But when we think of Buddhism, I think of Buddhism, I normally think of meditation and detachment, and this is thinking of environmental is a new concept or new idea for me. So thank you very much. I didn't know. I was thinking how you are going to link Buddhism with the environment.
Okay.
Thank you. So I think as Ling suggested, we all start in a small way, and that will become whatever we can, and we improve day by day.
Yeah, thank you, Basantha. Yeah, and there's more. I mean, there's much more that we could go through. That Buddhism applies to that. And just some basic things. I mean, the Buddha was enlightened under a tree, the Bodhi tree, as you know. He was born in the garden, and he died in nature as well, between the two sala trees. And he was always encouraging his monks, meditate. It's monks, here are the huts and tree roots. Come and meditate.
That's true.
It reminds me of Basantha was just commenting, what's environment got to do with religion and spirituality. But when I first started participating in this group, we had a talk by a Buddhist, Sunita Bishan, and you can find the link if you're interested. This is 5 years ago. And her talk was on changing the climate through compassion. And I had no idea how she was going to demonstrate that, but she absolutely did. Testify.
Okay, thank you for giving me that chance. One thing struck to my mind is the oasis, as the speaker said. This oasis of the individuals. It's very, very important because the world is traveled by people, not by animals. So we people, individually, if we become oasis for ourselves, then this oasis, I think, is a very, very striking idea for me. If I am become one oasis, I will be good thinker next and next and next. So thank you for this inspired word for me to be an oasis in this very troubled world, this world full of hate. We have to have a positive attitude, like the teaching said. Thank you.
That's the spirit.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yung, your turn. We've only got 9 minutes, and I want to talk too.
Thank you so much. You know, the green color is the color of life. If sometimes you step into the doctor clinic, especially the doctor who look after babies, you see they decorate all around their office with green color because it's a color of life. And people walk through the rainforest because they believe that rainforests give a lot of oxygen and purify the heart and the blood. So talk about medical things. Green color and rainforest and everything green is good. However, we had to watch that sort of green that can produce good air and what sort of green that can poison the air. The another subject is to talk about the electric magnetic field in the energy industry. When they build up a substation, a zone sub, or the switch yard with overhead mains and underground cables, they have to study about electromagnetic fields that can cause cancer to people that live around them. So therefore, later on, we did revolution, okay? We produced solar panel. The solar panel will take the sun as the main source of energy and feed them into the grid. But you know, in the long term, it's people already know the effect of solar heat get effect around the climate and everything else. But just like another topic, electromagnetic field, people can study that for 15 years to find out the cause of cancer in people that live nearby. But they couldn't say yes or no, it's the cause. So the same thing has happened with solar panel. We really have to watch out. I'm just saying, you know, take caution and watch out, including battery and everything. It might cause fire. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Yung. So there are many concerns that we have about our industrial systems and lifestyles and all this technology that we have. So they become systems in our lives, and they're just there. They are. And so for me, well, there's not much I can do about that. So I'm going to accept that, and I'm just going to keep on going. You know, you could also think about, you know, the synthetic chemicals that we've manufactured, created, that never existed on the planet before. So it's like, well, they're everywhere as well, but it's just, okay, that's just the way it is. Have to get on with things. Oh, yes, and green, nature is definitely good for you.
Yeah, but they're gonna build a lot of tram, the transport system. They're gonna carry tram all around, so they have to chop a lot of trees and they have to reground the land and they have to do infrastructure just around the tramway to make it safe. So we won't expect a lot of trees will be green around, you know, eastern suburb or whatever, northern suburbs. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Dana, your hand is up, please.
Yes, I would like to also add that with the television and these media, you know, it's on one hand, we need to reduce the consumption. On the other hand, you know, advertising and thing encourages people to buy things, you know, and it's just whether it's chemicals or any other resources, all that goes into, most of it into consumer products. And so how can you know, reduce that? And I think that's the power of advertising and media. It can influence people one way or another. And perhaps can government influence that more? I don't know. It should be. What does anybody else think? I mentioned the population and nobody said anything about that. And
can I ask Kelvin if you have a comment?
Thanks, Colin. Thank you, Tom. That was really beautiful and informative. I really liked that at the beginning of your talk in relation to acknowledging how you feel, and when you see pollution and things like that, you don't feel good about it. All those emotions, they do lead to positive outcomes, like you were saying. They've got a message for us, and somehow we try to. It's a bit like those feelings are acknowledge them. It's a bit like a filter or something. I won't try to explain that. You did very well. I wonder if we stop killing each other, how if we would come to, to be able to sort these sort of problems out a lot better. Because I sort of sense that that's what affects me most, is when I see things happening in the world, and the things that make me cry are what happens to what we do to one another. And so I'd like us to stop doing that. Maybe the focus was mentioned a bit earlier. Maybe that should be the focus first. I don't know. And then, so there was many things in your talk and what people have said, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelvin. And with the population problem, Kelvin's solution is to go to far away from population as possible. But unfortunately, we still have an impact because we buy cotton shirts and they all get manufactured upstream from Kelvin's backyard, which is the Barker Darling River, beautiful river.
Can I jump in?
And
sorry.
And Kelvin built, this is Kelvin's project, he's built this lovely community chair at the back of his property, so community just can come and sit and enjoy the environment and the passing river. And also one of Kelvin's friends put on an exhibition at the Australian Museum in Sydney, which went for quite a while. It was beautiful, about what was happening to the river and raising consciousness. I thought it was a brilliant initiative. But as for population, I think cooperation. With cooperation, we can sort these things out. Where does cooperation come from? Maybe from religion. All right, I'll skip my question because it was getting a bit, I was going to be a bit theological, and I'll skip to Ahmed.
Yeah, I want to go back to Tracy's transition time. Abdul Baha, the grandson of Baha'u'llah, has used a metaphor, and the metaphor is that humanity is like a human being, going through different stages of his life. So he says that the humanity has gone into childhood, adolescence, and this is the time where we come out of adolescence. And he said that by having unity of mankind established, a lot of these problems will be solved. And I think if we become united, our thoughts would be directed in one direction and would solve all these problems. So the issue in the world is lack of unity among humanity. And we see that, especially these days, some of the countries polarizing against the other countries, whereas they have to come together, consult, and try to solve the issues and unify. I know it's a lot of people say this is utopia concept, but it's going to go that way. Even science is trying to force us to go that way. Communication is forcing us to go that way. So we have reached to a stage of humanity's civilization where unity of mankind is most important.
Thank you, Ahmed, for that comment. We're approaching finishing time. I just wanted to say that I was interested, Tom, that you mentioned the noble truths about release from suffering, and how do you do that with the fourth noble truth, which is a path we can follow, a practical path, basically. And you mentioned speech and action. And so I can see a two-way thing between the individual and society. And I'm guessing from what you've explained to us that if we're really concerned about releasing ourselves from suffering, from being detached from the things which cause us pain, get right into this path which Buddha gave us, including good actions, even small actions. Everything makes a difference. And as well as helping the world, it seems to me that when we do these things, we're helping ourselves as well. Look, that was a lovely talk, and I really appreciated it. The Buddhists are great. We loved to have presentations from that perspective. And I believe next week, do look into the Eightfold Path. Beautiful. All right. Well, look, Ling, I believe you're our presenter next week, and if you can bring that into it, that would be great. But of course, it's up to you. So thank you.
Just looking forward to that.
Yeah. So thank you, Tom, and thanks also for introducing us to Ling, who we'll see next week, and very much appreciated your presentation tonight.
Wonderful to meet you all. I look forward to catching up next week.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's educational. It's educational, and thank you so much for your knowledge and experience and wisdom.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.